I've been in exploration for over 18 years. Been part of and managing like the collection of soil samples on a lot of different properties. Probably tens of thousands of soil samples. Uh, that one sample that was 21 grams per ton. That's the highest soil sample I've ever seen.
Brodie, good to talk to you. And I just want to update on a few things. You've been pretty active lately. Now, on November the 12th, you released an update on the chip sample and the soil program. You did a good video explaining, the trend lines and everything else. And I don't want to get deep into the weeds on that, but I just want to focus on one quote in that news release where you said the results from the soil survey are simply incredible, et cetera, et cetera. Now, obviously you wouldn't have said that if your gut didn't tell you that, being on the property and seeing the samples. I don't want to get into trend lines and everything else, but what sparked that comment?
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks for having me, Gran. And I mean, really, I've I've been in exploration for over 18 years. Been part of and managing like the collection of soil samples on a lot of different properties. Probably tens of thousands of soil samples. Uh, that one sample that was 21 grams per ton. That's the highest soil sample I've ever seen. And not only with gold, but it was silver. It hit the over limit. We don't actually know how much silver's in it. We just know that it's over 2 kilograms. Very high lead, zinc, copper values as well. So I mean, that really what led that comment is that they are incredible results. I mean, we typically look for very subtle variations in gold in the soils, and to see values that high, I think is exceptional. And it tells you that one, it works as a way to explore this area because we were able to identify a mine working, old artisanal one close by from that result. And so it works, and it's going to help us find more. And I think there's a big area there that's really lighting up in that survey that we can now, and we are following up on the ground right now to further define and start to create drill targets from that.
Yeah, just, obviously, I'm sure you don't anticipate when the drilling gets going that you're going to be pulling up core with assays of 21 grams a ton, but that certainly points you in the right direction. And going back on previous assay results, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're finding in your assays are sort of 50 to 100% greater on a grams per ton basis than your two closest surrounding neighbors that are actually producing mines. Is that correct?
Yeah, uh, is 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 typically what's mined in the open pits. They do mine down to 0.4, 0.3 in some cases, and that, I mean, that's you're going to see more of that with gold now above 2,500. Uh, but what makes Gran Pilar special is that it's got high grade mineralization. So like what we saw in the soil sample, but like we see in rock sample and in core, we do get high grade intervals that boost the overall grade. And what's nice is that adjacent to that, there's low grade mineralization that you can group together into a bulk target. And I think what we've shown in our bulk sample completed in 2023 is that when you blend those, the high grade and the low grade, you end up with something that's well above a gram per ton. We got 1.9 in our head grade for our bulk sample. So I think that's what makes Gran Pilar special is that you start to blend those things, it really increases the grade and makes the economics even that more enticing.
Let's move on to a conference you recently attended in Sonora, Mexico, which is sort of the heart of mining of Mexico. It's my understanding that you were one of only a few CEOs to speak at that conference. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's an annual mining conference that sees over 15,000 in attendance. It is very it's focused on the industry as a whole. And so only a few companies are asked to present, and more focused on the technical side of things. But we're one of the few that were selected. I think we're probably, in terms of stage of development, probably on the earlier stage of all those companies. So, I think it was obviously we're proud to be able to be part of that. But a great conference, great optimism there, and a great snapshot on the current state of mining in Mexico.
On that point, I know there was some apprehension with the elections in Mexico a couple of months ago about what may or may not happen to the mining industry and, green movement, environmental and everything else. What was the mood like?
It was quite refreshing because we know what we've seen in the media over the last couple of years, and it definitely had a negative sentiment to it. But I'd say the mood at the conference was extreme optimism. I mean, the senator of Sonora spoke at the opening ceremony, and uh, you know, quite simply, translated, he said, everyone is a lot more worried than he is. I think you know he knows what mining means to Sonora, especially, uh, and it's not going to stop. I mean, that's quite clear, and I think there's been also very clear indications with the incoming government in Mexico that there is not going to be a ban on open pit mining. There's likely to be increased regulations, which we fully support, and we'll navigate through that as we need to. But yeah, everyone is extremely optimistic. It was interesting to talk to people there, and they make comments like there's people that they haven't seen in a long time that were back, kind of reassessing where Mexico is at and looking at, either to come in for investment or to find projects. So I think, the doors are opening up again for Mexico, and, we can benefit from that because we've, got an excellent standing there.
Last point I want to cover in our conversation here is you had a major on the property in the summer. You've been pretty quiet about that, and I understand why. Is it correct that that major was there a lot longer than anticipated? And can you tell us as much as you're comfortable talking about?
Sure. I mean, what obviously what we're looking to do is build something that is attractive for any investor or a major producer. And what we have at Gran Pilar is quite special, and in that in the southern area there seems to be very apparent expansion potential, and the latest surface samples we put out shows that. But 5 kilometers to the north of that, there's a completely separate mineralized system that's big. It's 3 kilometers long. It's a kilometer and a half wide. We really only have a few samples in it, but we think we're at the top of an epithermal system there that warrants testing with the drill. And it's actually that area that attracted the major. I think it's an enticing target for them to look at. And initially they wanted to spend a week just kind of getting their eyes into it and understanding it. They ended up spending 6 weeks, looking at that whole area, and then to the south, and then stuff around in the region. So obviously conversations, they always take a bit longer when you're dealing with a major, and I think from both sides it's early. We have just a base understanding of what that potential is. The results that we put out yesterday, I mean, that's the first time they're seeing that as well. So I think as we continue to expand our understanding of what the potential is, those conversations will continue. And our biggest message to our shareholders is that we don't want to sell ourselves short. There's no point rushing into a deal before we fully understand what the potential is, and that's our standpoint. And we'll see where those conversations go.
Thank you, Brodie, for this update. And I think you're going to have a rather active 2025. Again, thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Appreciate it.